Hey guys, let us move to our 6th tutorial where I'll be telling you about the looping structures, also called the iteration constructs. In this tutorial, we'll learn about the for next loops, the do loop, the nesting of loops, and some complicated loops along with their solutions. We will also create a sample program called the color blender. Before doing anything, create a standard exe project and on the form make 16 labels as shown and set the border style property of all of them as fig single. Now let's proceed to the code window. In Visual Basic, looping can be done in several ways. Sometimes we know how many times we want to execute a statement and sometimes we don't know. In the latter case, we have a situation in which the repetition process will stop. For the former case, we use the for next loop. And for the latter case, we use the do loop. The syntax for the for next loop is for space variable is equal to start value to end value space optional step space delta. Delta means the increment or decrement value. Then we write our statements or the code we need to execute in the for loop, and then we write next optional the variable name again. The simplest example of the for next loop can be for x is equal to 1 to 10 message box string of x next x. Now if we run the program, we will see 10 message boxes back to back, and then our form will load 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. To understand the step and the delta, we'll write for x is equal to 5 to 1, then step space the delta, and the delta this time will be -1. By default, the step is always 1 and x goes from 1 to 10 by the increment of 1 in each loop. But this time we will see 5 message boxes appearing back to back from 5 to 1, and then our form will load like a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the form loads. The form load event takes place before the form is loaded in the graphics memory, that is, before the form is visible to us. That is why we see message boxes before the form load. Now let us understand the do loops. The do loops are further classified into do while loop, do loop while, do until loop, and do loop until. There is another variation that might lead into an infinite loop, but some programmers use it, and it is just a simple do loop. We use the do while loop and do until loop if we want to check for condition before entering the loop, while the other two are used when the condition is checked at the end of the loop, that is, when the loop is about to send the compiler to the previous statements. Let us start with the third one, the do loop while. We'll write do y is equal to input box authentication required, and then we'll write the title as enter password, and we'll close the input box parenthesis, and then we'll write loop while y is not equal to zxgy87. So what it is going to do is that it will start a loop and then it will ask for the password, and if the password is incorrect, the actual password, as we can guess, is zxgy87, and if the password is not equal to the correct one, then the loop is executed and the compiler is sent back to this statement. Let us test run it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it is asking for the password. Suppose if you enter something else, then it again asks for the password, and then we will write the correct one, or again an incorrect one, and then the correct one. And here we go, the form is loaded. We can change the same loop into a do loop until by replacing the while word by until and the not equal to sign by an equal to. And it is easily understandable. Let us sample run it. So it is working. Now let us try to convert the same into a do while loop. Please note that we didn't even declare the variables y and x, and it's a bad practice, so you need to avoid that in your real life programming. This time we'll write do while y is not equal to zx. We need to change the password, it's quite complicated, like yeah, and then remove all this line. Now it will execute do while y is not equal to yeah. By default y will not be equal to yeah, but it will be a variant data type with no data in it. And then it will ask for the password, and if the password is matched, then this condition won't be satisfied, and hence the loop will terminate. Let us sample run. Alright. At last, let us try to convert it into a do until loop, and it is quite simple. Just replace the not equal to by the equal to, and let's sample run it again. Yeah, it's working. It's true that we can interconvert most of the do loops, but all of them have their own applications. The form won't be visible until the compiler reaches the end sub statement successfully. But we don't want that to happen. We want our form to be visible. And for that, we will write me.show. Here the keyword me stands for the form itself. We can also write form1.show. There is no error in that. When the system is under intense processing, it doesn't care about the GUI, and sometimes it skips the statements that are written for the graphical update. And to avoid that, we write DoEvents. The DoEvents keyword makes sure that all the GUI is updated before proceeding to the next statement. What our color blender is going to do is to display random colors in those 16 boxes or the 16 labels. Now we'll write do label1.backcolor is equal to. There is a function in Visual Basic to access colors, and the function is RGB, red, green, blue. This function returns a color value for the values entered for red, blue and green component respectively. Then we apply the parenthesis and we see its syntax. It asks for red as integer, green as integer and blue as integer. In our modern systems, we have 256-bit colors. That means the color range of red, blue and green components can be from 0 to 255. That means if we want our label one's back color to be white, then we'll write 255, 255, 255, and then we'll close the parenthesis. This statement will set the back color of the label 1 to the white color. But we want random colors, so we'll multiply everything by RND. RND is a keyword that is used to generate a random number. We'll repeat the same for the blue and the green components. And now we'll write DoEvents because we need to update the GUI. And now we'll write loop. This is the example of the do loop structure. Now we'll sample run our program. So as you can see that the label 1 have random colors in it. Now stop the execution and copy this statement and then change all the values from label 1 to label 16. Please note that the RND function returns a value between 0 and 1, a decimal value. Therefore, 255 into RND will return a value between 0 and 255. So logically, this line will create a random color for the label 5th back color. Now let us sample run our program. As you see, a color matrix is obtained. If you use RND keyword in your programs, then you might come to know that RND returns the random values in a sequence. And to avoid that, we need to seed the RND, and for that we write the randomize keyword. The randomize keyword seeds the RND function, and hence the RND returns a completely random value, not based on any sequence. But our program is so fast that it's so hard to encounter that repetition. So we don't need to write randomize here. You might find some color distortions during the runtime of the program, and this is due to the conflicts in the monitor and processor capability of your computer. If you use the do loop frequently, then there are chances to be caught up in the infinite loop. For example, if we remove the until y is equal to yeah from here, then we will be caught up in an infinite loop which will keep asking for the password. To avoid such conditions, we need to exit from the loop at some situation, and for that we use the keyword exit do. Exit do in case of do loop and exit for in case of the for loop. So we will write if y is equal to yeah, then exit do. So it is going to serve the same purpose as our previous examples. Let us sample run this program again. And we see we get access to the color blender. Finally, let us talk about the nesting of loops. Just like the if statements, the loops can also be nested. In fact, in Visual Basic, you can nest an if into a loop into an if, a select case into an if, a select case into a loop into a select case, and all that. Means the select case, the if, and the loops can be internested. That means anything can be nested in anything. Now I have a digital exercise for you guys. The exercise is that you have to create an application that tells the user that whether the number entered is prime or not. This is exercise number 1, and the exercise number 2 is to create an application that tells the user the factorial of the number entered. Wait for the next tutorial where I'll be introducing the timer function and the timer control. See you in the next tutorial.